Hello everyone and welcome to the tutorial. On this particular one I want to talk about Granulator 3 and just how insanely powerful it is for textures, sci-fi, sound design, amazing stuff. So basically I'm going to be focusing in the field of textures and pad sounds. So that's what this video is going to be about. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for watching. My name is Hector. I produce under the alias of Hektagon. I've been a teacher for over 14 years. And I decided to share my knowledge here in YouTube. So thank you so much for watching. If you're curious about myself, have a look at the description to the video and then you'll find so much more information and details about me, including my one-to-one lessons, preset packs, etc. Right, so you can see all there. Amazing. So I'm going to crack on with the video. I just want to show you an example. So this is just a loop I've got going. I created this sort of like ambient pad sound. Some kind of like interesting soft textures and stuff, and this is in context with the track. No, it seems so high. Let's hear it with the bass. Right, you get the idea. So let's crack on. So how did I go about making that sound? So I'm not going to make the exact same sound. I never do that. So I'm going to do something else. I'm going to show you some interesting ways that we can use Granulator. So for those of you that might not know, Granulator is basically what's known as a granular synthesizer. So in a normal synthesizer, what we do basically is we got an oscillator that we can actually have sine, square, sawtooth, and noise. And in Granulator, we actually replace that oscillator for basically any sample that we want. But not only that, we have got insane amount of control over the sample because we can freeze portions of that sample and play them forever and create textures out of it. So this Granulator 3 uses what's known as granular synthesis, and granular synthesis is insanely powerful. Let me show you this. So I'm going to go with the Ableton sample, so you all got the same samples basically. There's a few ones that we can work with. There's a few keys ones. For example, I don't mind that. That's interesting. So it's on G minor. So hey, I'm going old school. So even if it's not perfectly in key, it should be still quite an interesting sort of approach. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the mode to cloud instead of classic, because cloud allows me to have more grains stacked. So remember that grains are just literally short loops of audio. That's basically what it is. It's a short snippet of the audio that keeps looping forever and ever. And then we can move that across the entire sample, right? By the way, clicking and dragging on the panel is much more precise than the position. So when you zoom in as well, you can actually really fine tune it because you can zoom right in and that's going to give you really good control. But if we use the position, it can be a little bit jumpy, right? So yeah, so clicking and dragging is always better. You see? So this is one thing, like we are literally just using a tiny portion of that sample, right? So I like that. Let's increase the number of grains that we can hear at the same time, of how many loops are going to be kind of like overlapped. The more grains, the more sort of smeary and texturized the sound is going to sound like. And the way to add more grains is literally by going where it says grain size. And then here we can apply the density. And at the moment you can see we were on 4, but we can apply up to 20 grains. So it's just a thicker sound. Then the other thing I will advise people to try out is the spread function. So the spread function, what it does, it takes the grains that is generated and it spreads them left and right, but it also spreads them by an amount of semitones. So you can do some crazy stuff like this. You got high grains on the right, low, basically grains that have been pitched down lower to the left. But you, subtle is best on this. So sometimes I just like to add a little bit. Something like that sounds quite quite cool, right? So it just opens up the sound a little bit. The grain size is basically how short or how long the loops are gonna be, right? So shorter loops is gonna sound maybe like more metallic, kind of noise, which can also be interesting. Like, I don't know, like if you wanna do some silly sound design, you can do that, right? You can see that, but can play around with the envelope. But we are making a pad sound, so let's open up the grains. Use your ears so it doesn't sound noisy. The shorter the grain, the kind of like more robotic and noisy it's gonna sound. So let's open it up until it eventually sounds more natural. It doesn't sound so scary and horrible. Nice. So already that sounds quite interesting, right? The other thing as well that we can do is we can add variation. So basically we can randomize different things like the position of the grains, the volume, right? You can do all these different things if you want to add more variation. I mean, you can even do it to the volume, so each grain has got like a different kind of variation to it. You can sort of hear it jumping. That could give you less of a kind of brick wall kind of texture. You see what I mean? Maybe let's make it much more intense. The position, as you can see here, is basically instead of playing here, it's gonna basically play ahead by like 1 second. So I don't actually want that, so I'm just gonna reset that to nothing. Unlike the volume, if you go to transpose, then we get chaos. So if you're looking to create alien textures, then that's your friend. Anyway, so let's go into other sections because there's so much more that we can explore here, right? And this is the number of grains as well, so it kind of like changes, right? So let's go over to the other thing as well. I want to kind of explore a little bit is I want this sound to travel, and yes, we can scan it, so we can actually go to the scan. But the scan always goes in one direction. Another one that I want something that sounds much more interesting. So I'm going to go over to the LFO and I'm going to make that so instead of being 3 is 0. I'm going to also do stereo scanning, which is really weird. So it basically means that the left and right channels are going to have a slight different deviations on the LFO shape, right? So suddenly, like instead of having the sign going exactly at the same point in the cycle, right, left and right channels, you got slight difference, so it creates more of a wider effect. And then obviously I'm gonna click on the position and then I'm going to scan it. So I'm gonna scan it with the LFO. Let's play around with that. Let's have a look at the right from here. So I want it to kind of travel forwards and backwards. Nice. If we speed up the LFO, then it sounds more like a abstract texture look. You see? I kind of like that sort of movement, right? And we can slow it down, of course, by slowing down the LFO. Alright, so that's one texture that we've got, right? And of course, I mean, you can go really creative and you can play farther up. You could potentially even record that in real time. But I'm going to stick with that, because I like it. And it's already got some interesting effects to it. What I'm going to do though now is I'm going to layer it just to give it a little bit of flavor. And of course it's not in key, it's a chord, so whatever, but we'll figure that in a minute. We will figure that out in a second. I want to add some kind of texture. I'm going to go to where it says texture here. That could be nice, but that has got a tone. Crackle. That could be also cool, like if we want to have like some kind of bird sounds playing on top of it. But I don't want the pitch of the birds to change. I just want it to be like a constant ambience. So it's got kind of like jungle ambient with bird sounds. So instead of actually, let's go back and use Granulator for that. So I'm going to duplicate it. And in fact, I'm going to use another copy of Granulator as well, and I'm going to layer it here. So I'm going to use 3 granulators for this. So let's go back into these, onto those bird sounds. Let's just drag and drop it in there. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that the pitch is not affecting the tone, right? So I'm going to go to transpose and make sure that the key is set to 0. So now if I go up and down the keyboard, it's always the same sound. Obviously that doesn't sound like birds because it's too short. Let's go into texture, cloud. Again, I'm just going to add loads of voices because I just love it. Nice, that's like a full jungle now, isn't it? Let's add, I'm going to add variation instead, see what happens. And let's open the position. Nice. Let's add volume variation as well. Let's maybe move it back here. I don't mind that, it's okay. Let's play those two together. So we got that soft texture, but I find it a little bit boring because it's always the same. So I'm going to do something a little bit crazy, and I'm literally going to go and select the LFO here, and I'm going to select random, and I'm going to literally apply the random position to the position here. So I'm going to go to the LFO and click on the amount. It's more like it. So it's constantly kind of, it's using the whole sample now. You see what I mean? It never kind of repeats. So then you can hear some of the birds, more of the rain, more of, you know what I mean? Look. Cool. And we could filter it, so you can see there's a little bit of like rumble in that sound. So if I wanted to filter it out, I can use a high pass filter here and remove the lows a little bit, right? So let's go into the frequency right there. There. That's nice. It doesn't have the rumble. Maybe let's try spreading it as well, see what it sounds like. Yeah, lovely. Look at that. Really cool. Let's also, can we randomize the stereo, the left and right channels? Let's see what happens if we do that. Even more variation, I think. It kind of travels more, right? It's hard to tell in all fairness. But yeah, in theory, that's what it should do. It should add a different LFO to the left and right channels, and that creates more of a difference, right? So that should work nicely. So we got those kind of bird ambient. But I want to add another sample that also maybe adds different tonality to the texture that we already got. So potentially I can go here and I can go, okay, well, let's just go to tonal, see what we got. We got some guitars, keys. I think that was a piano. So maybe like if we go to keys. That's the same one. Let's go to one shots instead of loops. I think that would give me a better sound. So let's go maybe to strings. Okay, I'm gonna go to the classic. That's already in key, so in theory it should kind of work. Yeah, that's cool. And of course that sounds awful with the classic mode, so I'm gonna go to cloud. And let's bring it down in volume. Yeah, that sounds lovely. Let's go and add more of the more density, okay? Lovely. Let's maybe increase the envelope here so it kind of comes in more gradual. It's too high in pitch, so I'm literally gonna go down an entire octave. There you go. So that's your sound created. I mean, of course, I the sky's the limit. I can apply more movement here. I don't know, you get it, right? Potentially, yes, so it's always different. Could be really interesting as well. As I said before, you could go over to the LFO here, go to random, and then apply that to the position, right? And then just go over to here, and off we go. So let's hear that. I'm going to copy this. I think those were nice kind of like progressions. Yeah, that's the string now, you can see. Oh, it's too much, isn't it? Because it disappears, because there's silence towards the end. Alright, so instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the LFO amount. Let's just bring it down. Now let's speed up the LFO frequency. There we go. Let's make it, bring it here. That's cool. Let's increase the release. Yeah, that's it. Let's hear the other ones. Potentially I could match the pitch better. Let's have a listen to that. There's obviously much more that we can do with the Granulator. It's an insanely powerful plugin, but I just wanted to share that video with you all. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and any questions, let us know. Okay, so take it easy and talk to you soon.